How's everybody doing today? Hey, how's everybody doing today? Alright, I got an excellent connection. That is awesome. Cool. Alright, trying out the live streaming. I know we're going to do some more YouTube videos, but this is kind of a test run for what's going to be a very busy pattern for us in the tropics, especially for the Gulf coastal states. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be updated to the latest on what's going on. And made this little graphic last night, kind of where we're at here in the next 5 days. Yeah, it's election season. This is as political as we're all going to get. How's that sound for you guys? But yeah, if you are on YouTube on our channel and you see this coming up, please give us a shout. I'm going to try to answer your questions. Actually, I'm going to pull this up on my other computer, and that way I'm going to be able to see what you all are saying here. How's that sound? So just give me a second and hang tight. I know it's early Sunday. Some of y'all are probably just waking up, getting ready for church, finishing up your weekend activities. But this is this is what we got going on here. So CarolinaWXAuthority.com. Ignore the ads. Well, you can click on them. That helps us. But let's just look at the weather. How's that sound? Like us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page. Carolina, I think it's facebook.com/Carolina WX Authority. Pretty simple, right? WX is, of course, the military term for weather, or the shortcut for weather. All right, so we've made some bolder predictions here, and you'll see going back to about August 8th, we've talked about the risks for additional hurricanes later this month through October. Maybe that was an understatement. I'm not really sure, but we've got a risk for 2 this week in the next 5 days in the Gulf Coast, and that's not going to be it, I don't think, for the United States based on the way this season is going. I know it's been kind of a quiet season as far as major hurricanes go, but remember, it is August 23rd, and we're just starting to get into the real meat of the season. On August 10th, I put out an article about our first major hurricane being possible in 2 weeks, and here it is 2 weeks, and guess what? That is definitely still going to be the case, I believe, that we believe. Mike and I have been chatting about it. And then a major hurricane could threaten the United States. Again, we kind of narrowed down the window a little bit from the possibility to the threat that it could affect the United States. 4 more named storms. Well, we've had 2, so there still could be 2 before the end of the month. And then the major hurricane threat article, which some people didn't like the graphic. Okay, so let me just tell you guys right now that yes, we maybe jumped the gun on the graphic. However, the threat to the Gulf Coast states of a major hurricane is still alive and well. So, yes. All right, I'm going to turn off this live stream because it's clearly not getting any play. Well, let's see. Maybe it is. Let's see where we're at. I'm going to turn that off. Hey, give me a shout. Oh, all right, Amber's on. Okay, I was about to kill this because it's early and nobody's really on, but let's keep talking and let you guys join us in progress. How does that sound? All right, so yeah, this graphic that Mike and I kind of slapped together into my article, honestly, a little bit overboard, maybe a little bit of clickbait. However, we are now talking about this potential here in the Central Gulf of a Category 4 hurricane. The Hurricane Center is definitely forecasting a hurricane strike, which looks to be on Louisiana at this point. Still some time to watch it because it's got some land that it's got to still go over. The East Coast is shut down right now. When I put this article out almost a week ago, it didn't quite look that way, so we kept the East Coast on alert, but now at this point we're looking at the Gulf Coast and Cuba and maybe the Florida Keys as well. So maybe the upper Texas coast on over to, say, the far western Florida Panhandle. Definitely have that threat still with us. So if you read the article, you'd see that this wasn't just, hey, click on the article, this is what's going on. Anyway, not going to defend it anymore. It's it is what it is. But feel free, if you guys are on now, to shoot some questions at me. I'm going to kind of give you a breakdown of what's going on. Of course, we put this article out, and probably everybody else and their mom have seen the same thing, not just from us. On the 20th, 2 named storms possible. This was put out 3 days ago before the tracks started shifting, where this track has shifted right and this one shifted left, and now we're talking about the area in between the two. And this is just kind of it's kind of a day in the life of a meteorologist. Yes, we have that cone of uncertainty, but also we've got that certainly uncertainty can be a little bit larger than normal, especially in a situation such as this. So yes, extend the two cones together. And then last night Mike put out an article, and I collaborated with him actually late yesterday afternoon. Now we're looking at what is a growing storm, and we believe has the risk of becoming a major category 3 to 5 hurricane in the Central Gulf. We hope that doesn't hit as a 5. It could weaken, but we're starting to see kind of some indications that this storm is going to be stronger than the Hurricane Center's forecasting. They are certainly upping their intensity forecast. This morning they were going 100 miles per hour, which is category 2 at landfall, but you can see where the trend is going. They're going to be a little more conservative, but they have in-house models, and we have models that show this system getting to at least category 3, so that major hurricane threat is alive and well, the one we warned you guys about 2 weeks ago. So I don't feel bad about that at all, saying that this could be a 5, but we would obviously hope for it not to be. Especially me, because I personally am a Baton Rouge native. I have family in the New Orleans area, a lot of friends that live down here. The very last thing I want to do is have to call all of my family and friends and tell them, you guys, this is going to be the thing, because they've been through so much already. I mean, that place is so vulnerable for storms. It has impacted my family economically, emotionally. It's just been really difficult. So for me to put something like this out, it looks very scary, yes, but it also really, I don't know, it hits home hard for me. I'm a Raleigh native now, and we definitely have had hurricanes in the Carolinas. We've, in Raleigh, of course, kind of miss the bulk of those, but we still can get that inland flooding and some of that wind damage. But at the coast and across much of this low country of Louisiana, it is super, super vulnerable. All right, so those are the articles we put out. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's kind of getting us going here with the water temperatures. Now, this is in Celsius. So the brighter reds are 30 degrees Celsius. That is 86 Fahrenheit. And these pinks are 88, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, for a tropical system to develop and survive, we generally say the 26 or 27 degree isotherm is there. So really this entire area, temperature-wise, sea surface temperature-wise, does support having tropical systems. When we get up into the 30s, we now have the concern for much stronger storms. Now, that's not to say that anything over any of these bodies of water is going to go to major hurricane. That's just one of several ingredients that can come into play when we're talking about it. But thank you, Amber, for praying for my family. I mean, I'm a man of God, honestly, and I think prayer can go a long way. We can't prevent stuff from happening. We can definitely support each other and be the best citizens we can. But North Carolina getting some rain from Laura after this, I think it's possible. I'm going to get into that in a little bit here after we go. Actually, I can pull it up for you now. Let's take a peek at the GFS model, for example, and I'm going to move it forward here. So what's going on is we actually have a trough here that's brought a lot of moisture up the spine of the Appalachians, the East Tennessee and western North Carolina. Are in for a wet pattern here over the next couple of days. Eastern Carolina is not super wet. We do have kind of a weak boundary in the area. That rain's not from these tropical systems, but you can see once it comes inland, it's going so far west. We actually have kind of a mini high pressure ridge in the southeast that's actually going to kind of prevent the real heavy rain from, we think, making it into the Carolinas. Now, there could be some severe weather towards next weekend as the remnant low comes up into the mid-Atlantic states and northeast. We're in the warm sector. We could have some increased vertical motion and shear from a tropical system. Believe it or not, that's even 3 or 4 days after landfall. But, we're not going to see any direct impact from Laura rain-wise, which is what we want to hear, right? We don't need any more rain. I mean, my yard the mud is playing with, the puddles of mud are playing with each other. I kind of joke about that. But we're going to get a break after this comes by. Actually, it should kind of be a nice little cooler stretch of pattern for a couple days at the very end of August, beginning of September, but not for long. probably just a couple days. So that hopefully that answered your question, Amber. Let me slow this down. I just had some coffee. I'm going to show you guys these a little bit more here in just a second. All right, so let's talk about Marco first. This satellite is from weathernerds.org. It is the enhanced infrared. We can see the center of the storm is into the southeastern Gulf. This is Tampa, Florida for reference. The northern Gulf Coast is off your screen to the north. A lot of lightning near the center of the storm, which shows a healthy central structure. A lot of lightning in bands coming up the Yucatan Channel to the east. So this storm is growing. It's not growing quickly because it's a smaller storm, but it's definitely doing, I think, what we thought it would do at this point in the south central southeastern Gulf of Mexico. This is the area we're going to be watching in a few more days for Laura, by the way. So it's churning up a little bit of that water, but we don't think it's a large enough storm that it's just going to empty the Gulf of all of its energy, so that Laura's not going to strengthen. So what's going on is up in here we do have some wind shear and we do have quite a bit of dry air, and that's keeping the western side of this storm from really growing the way that a major hurricane would grow. It's hampered by that dry air and that wind shear, but it's still holding its own pretty well. We think this thing could still be a hurricane, probably category 1 in the next 12 to 18 hours. So it's really not that far. I'm going to keep talking to you guys, but I do want to answer some questions in real time in case you have to run the church or take care of your family or whatever you got planned for your Sunday. Paratrooper Chad says, when factoring in all the things that add up to a major storm, how much does the water temperature being so warm factor in versus the other factors? That's actually a wonderful question. We think that is probably 60% of the formula, Chad. The other 40%, of course, is the allowance of conditions that are favorable for the air to actually rise and allow thunderstorms to form near the center of the storms. And wind shear plays into that, dry air and moist air plays into that. So we really have 3 factors that we study pretty much on a religious basis, especially in the tropical season. 1, of course, is the water temperatures. 2 is the amount of available rising air, which is, when you have low wind shear, those storm tops don't get blown off and you get a central area that can develop, kind of like we see here with Tropical Storm Marco. And dry air. I mean, we need to have moisture in place for storms to actually grow and not be subsidized by that dry air, if that makes sense. And then the other one is we need to see favorable steering currents that put the storm in a place where it can actually develop. Because if it's over land a lot, or if it's over cooler water, or just in a place where that wind shear can kill it off, then we don't see the conditions that we're seeing now in the Gulf of Mexico. So right now, the Gulf of Mexico is like, it's like a breeding ground for these things. We haven't seen a lot because the storm patterns haven't really favored them. The high pressure systems that have been driving these systems were farther north and east in July and August, and that's why the East Coast had a lot of activity. But remember, we did have a wave that looked like a piece of junk come across here in July, and as it moved across the Gulf, it blew up into Hurricane Hannah and hit at 90 miles per hour, maybe closer to 100. Based on the radar I saw. We'll have to wait and see what the Hurricane Center's post-analysis says. So hopefully that answered your question. I will show you a little bit more about Marco here in just a bit. Yeah, cutting the grass right now, Amber, is definitely... I've actually hired some people to do it so I can worry about the tropics. I usually take care of just about everything around my house. We don't have a massive yard. It's about a quarter acre, but it takes a little bit of time if you don't have... if you got water everywhere, it's kind of hard to mow. I found a picture a while back. It's kind of funny about that. So anyway, that's what we're looking at with Marco. Let me show you more models right here. By the way, this is where the low pressure is centered according to tropicaltidbits.com. I'm going to use them a lot. I think a lot of us meteorologists really appreciate what Levi's done. He's a Florida State doctor, tropical expert. He's a guy that we really respect in our industry. But we can see this low pressure came up right through the middle of the Yucatan Channel, which is where you don't want to see a storm go, because if it goes over Cuba or goes over Mexico, it's going to weaken. But over this warm, kind of narrow stretch of water, it just suctions things in, and then they have a great chance of developing. And you're welcome, Chad. And if you're a paratrooper and you serve in the military, we really appreciate you, buddy. I'm a veteran, but I never did anything crazy like that. So thank you for serving. And thanks for following us here at Carolina Weather Authority. All right, so here is what we're looking at. This model run is from 2 a.m. today. We'll have an update soon with an 8 a.m. model. They're probably just bringing in the 8 a.m. models are bringing in the latest data from Hurricane Hunter aircraft and from upper level patterns to try and figure out where it's going to go. And we can see the storm still doesn't have a great amount of certainty into how it's going to track, but all the models pretty much, what they're going to do is they're going to pull it northwestward and then make a hard left turn, and that is in response to this high pressure system which is going to block it. Now we had an upper level low, actually a trough here yesterday, that's starting to lift out, but there's still some wind shear coming around it. What happens is these winds aloft tend to take these thunderstorms in the center and push them northeast, and that keeps the storm from strengthening. But that wind shear has actually let up a little bit, and that's why Marco is still holding on and starting to grow. So right in here, in the next 12 to 24 hours, we think Marco will be at its strongest. We really hope that it's not up here as it's hitting southeast Louisiana potentially. But there's quite a bit of uncertainty at 48 hours because the storm's going to slow down as it runs into that high pressure region over the southeast and make a left turn, because the high is going to turn everything where it's steered on the southern and southwestern side of it. So, we can't say Texas is off the hook just yet. Of course, a storm like this is going to weaken because it's interacting with land and increasing wind shear, but it's going to do a lot of damage to this already sensitive coastline of Louisiana. I've been down there. There's a lot of fishing towns, and this place is just, it's been decimated by storm after storm. It's very vulnerable, more so than I think the rest of the United States is. So, we could have a storm coming right up to NOLA. We could have something coming up to near Houma, Thibodaux, Port Fourchon, those areas, right up Barataria Bay potentially, coming through Terrebonne Bay, or right up through the Atchafalaya Basin here, but maybe a turn to the left that just kind of takes it right along the coast. And at this point, we think it's weakened enough to where it'll be a tropical storm, but the storm surge will be out ahead of it on the right. We could have tornadoes, could have some flooding along this coastal plain in here. I mean, it is swampland, but still flooding is possible. New Orleans floods like if somebody sneezes the wrong direction, just so you know. So that's obviously a very serious situation potentially for them. I am going to show y'all the intensity guidance, which shows that strengthening here and then coming to a halt probably by Monday morning, even before landfall, and then we have weakening. Could it get up to Cat 2? We thought maybe yesterday. I think that's kind of like a little too extreme at this point, but Category 1 is not going to be good for Louisiana. Hey, Southwest Illinois, man, you guys have had some tropical weather when Cristobal came up, and that wasn't even a hurricane. Y'all got some weather from that and had some storms, but it's been a brutal summer, that's for sure. So let me go back from this intensity forecast and show you guys the official Hurricane Center track, and I will try to make this a little larger for you. I don't have the central part of the track in, but you can see they're kind of middle of the road. They do have the window open so that the Houston area is still potentially a target, and then on the right side coming up through Lake Bourne and maybe to the Pearl River, mouth of the Pearl River. But we do have the southeastern coast of Louisiana under a hurricane warning. That was upgraded from a watch earlier this morning. And what that means is if you live in these vulnerable areas, say you're in Plaquemine Parish, St. Charles, St. Bernard, maybe Lafourche Parish, or trying to think of all the other ones from my geography class. They have 64 parishes. These are about 10 of them maybe. Where's Terrebonne? I think it's St. Mary's. St. Martin, those parishes and down in there, you should be thinking about evacuating today, if I can just be honest, because this could still be a stronger storm and you don't be caught off guard. We saw what a strengthening storm does right before landfall when we had Isaias coming up into North Carolina. Who's to say this won't do that? And it's not a massive storm, so the western side is going to be the better side to be on, but the eastern side is not. So the coast of Mississippi, right up through Mobile Bay, I do expect to see some coastal flooding, some storm surge in here. I think New Orleans could end up being under a hurricane warning at some point from Marco. If they're not from Marco, Laura's the next one. I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. But imagine yourself living in a place that is under 2 hurricane warnings back to back. I mean, is that not so 2020? That's why I had this graphic up a little while ago. And again, not going to put any political junk out there. It's just kind of our memes. But we do have memes, and we like them. So anyway, that's what's going on. I do want to show you the Hurricane Hunter aircraft, which is flying through Marco right now. And this is the lowest pressure they found, 991 millibars, which is, for the most part, strong tropical storm intensity, perhaps very low-end Category 1. You can see the aircraft is sampling. It's gone through, it's made one pass through the center already. It's going to make another one. It's going to the northwest quadrant to see how big the storm is and where the winds are. But flight level winds, it's found so far to be below hurricane intensity, which is good news. But a very well-defined circulation center and winds over 50 knots at flight level, which is about 60 miles per hour, well to the northeast of the center. So if you're in Mobile or if you're in Pascagoula or Gulfport and you see these kind of winds that far away from the center, just know that, yeah, the storm is going to be at least big enough to impact you with tropical storm conditions. Hope that makes sense to everyone. This was 8:45 Eastern Time, 7:45 Central. All right, so we'll get some more data coming from the plane. I will show you from tropicaltidbits.com what they're looking at here. Flight level wind in knots did measure almost 65 knots, so still not quite to hurricane strength because the flight level winds are actually about 10% higher than the surface winds on average. This graph shows the surface winds that are being measured, and the highest we've seen are in the 55 to 60 knot range. So it could be about 70 mile per hour strong tropical storm. Between you and me, the difference between 70 and 75 isn't all that big anyway, but it's not quite to hurricane strength. It could get there though today, I think. It's over a good spot in the Gulf for strengthening still. The only thing is it's a small storm, so it could fluctuate a little more quickly than a larger storm. Sea level pressure, again, it's been measured in a low 990, so it's not quite to hurricane strength just yet, but it could get there. So that's Marco. Let's move on to Laura, because this one I think is going to be the bigger problem. We'll look right now, and the storm was really drenching Puerto Rico yesterday, and now today it's been causing all kinds of problems over Haiti and Dominican Republic. When you see this many lightning strikes in the center, you definitely get worried about extreme heavy amounts of rain and wind. And there are some mountains up in here for sure, but they're not really disrupting the core of the storm. In fact, you can see the cloud pattern, it's actually grown. So it's fighting land, but it's also in a very favorable environment. Say this was all water, it would be intensifying quickly. We're glad it's not. But for these poor residents in here, seeing this kind of rain and lightning, we're going to hear of some incredible amounts of rain, flooding, mudslides, and a natural disaster for Haiti and probably Dominican Republic before this is all said and done. So if you're the prayer kind, please pray for these poor folks. They got a lot of rain, what was it? Not even a month ago from Isaias, which came up here. Now they're getting it from Tropical Storm Laura. So just really a bad situation for those folks, unfortunately. So where's this system going to go? Well, that's what I'm going to show you here. So here's Laura from tropicaltidbits.com. The center was analyzed excuse me, over western Haiti, so it will be back over water here this afternoon and then probably affecting Cuba. So that's where we're at with that. Let me close that out and show you guys we'll get to the hurricane track in a second, but the latest model guidance, and it continues to kind of swing left a little bit because the center of the storm is not up here. It's actually down on the southern envelope of our storm, and it's very possible that core could spend 12 hours over water and strengthen after it leaves Haiti before it goes through Cuba, which does have mountains, and then goes back over the far northern parts of the Caribbean. I know there's a Gulf name on the south side of Cuba. I don't know the name of it. But it could actually try to strengthen a little bit in here if it stays far enough to the left. But if not, it's probably going to be status quo. It may cycle a little bit through some weakening and then strengthening again. But when it gets out here in 48 hours, which is going to be Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., so it'll be off the coast of Cuba, I think, by late tomorrow evening or tomorrow night. Overnight, it does look like it's in a spot where it can start to reorganize. And then in here, what we're concerned about is a spot where, despite the fact that Marco's there now, it's got a very favorable outflow pattern where it can strengthen and grow quickly into a hurricane and perhaps a major hurricane up in here. And these waters in here are still pretty darn warm, as I showed you earlier on. Is that going to definitely happen? Not necessarily, but I think the potential is there, and we've seen a lot of storms in this part of the Gulf just go bonkers. Katrina did it, Rita did it, Wilma did it. Michael did it up in here. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time for a storm with the right environmental pattern to just blow up into a behemoth of a storm. So, this track is a little farther west. Marco shown in here, now Laura up towards southwest Louisiana. But if you're in New Orleans, this is still, believe me, you're still in the crosshairs, even though this is a little bit better news to you. Upper Texas coast is still in that crosshair. This is kind of where Rita hit back in 2005. And I think Gustav came up right on through here. Ike came through here. So this is a spot that's been hit a lot in recent memory, at least in the last couple decades. So Lake Charles is kind of in a really bad spot. Cameron Parish, maybe Avoyelles Parish up in here, western Louisiana. But this could shift back to the right. Wouldn't be shocked completely if it went left a little bit more. But we really aren't going to know until it gets past Cuba which part of Louisiana or Texas is going to be aimed towards. And you're not off the hook yet in Mississippi or Alabama either, just so you know. All right, so that's where our models are going with this system. Intensity forecast does show still everyone's going to make this a hurricane just about. Other than these models, which I don't know what they're looking at. But all the models make this a hurricane, so we think hurricane is almost a slam dunk at this point. Now, there's a few that go major, and some of these tropical models have backed off to Category 2, believe it or not, while others have gone higher, which is very interesting to me to see that there's just not a lot of consistency. So, Category 2 we think is probably a safe bet, but 3 or 4 is still possible, and I'm not going to bet my money on it or my stimulus check on it, but Cat 5 is definitely still on the table, folks. We didn't stick that article out there just to entrap people and be like, oh my goodness, look at this. We think it's possible. And I hate to say that, but it's true. So here's the official track from the Hurricane Center. It got shifted left a little bit. They're going 100 mile per hour at this point at landfall, very close to Lacassine Wildlife Refuge, which is not very populated with people, but it is with a lot of animals. So this could be really bad for them. But on the eastern side, right up the Atchafalaya Bay, we could see some incredible amounts of storm surge with this track. It could still shift east. It could still shift west. So we've got parts of Cuba under a tropical storm watch, and they're still under a tropical storm warning for Marco, which hopefully will be lifted. So that's where we're at with that. Definitely some crazy times here in 2020 for sure. All right, Debbie got my joke. Awesome. All right. I said I was going to get political. I don't know if that's political, economical. So before I wrap things up with you guys, please feel free to hit me with questions. Let's look at global models too real quick. Not going to be a modelologist here, but this is the GFS, and here you see Marco coming up as a tropical storm. Laura not as well organized. Looks like Cuba's going to do something to her here tonight. But she starts to tighten up a little bit better here. Now, by the way, this GFS model takes Marco right up into Gulfport and past Christian, Mississippi. Holy smokes. Even though we saw the forecast was taking it along to the west. So not a lot of agreement still. But here is Laura, and you can see still a tropical storm Monday night, Tuesday morning. But look at this pressure drop. Now we're starting to see a growing storm right where Marco is pretty much. You think that one hurricane or one tropical storm would drop off the intensity because that cooler water is going to upwell into the system, but we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of hyperactivity in the Gulf. So this is very early Tuesday, and then look at Tuesday afternoon. Now we've got a hurricane south of Mobile, and this is late Tuesday night, Category 1 to Category 2. This is Wednesday morning. This is the GFS, the model that was kind of killing this thing off a couple days ago. Now it's woken up and sees what we've been seeing. Now it's got a Category 2, almost 3 hurricane Wednesday morning. And now it's got a strong Category 3 hurricane Wednesday afternoon. And a strengthening Category 3, and then finally weakens after landfall. But 3, maybe even close to 4 at this point, is what the GFS is going with. The wave behind it doesn't look too impressive. Want to try and answer your question. But here you can see it's starting getting to the islands by the 31st. It could be a tropical storm at that point. By the way, this is insane. Come on, GFS, what are you doing to me? We've got another piece of moisture coming out that tries to develop in the Western Gulf on this model run, and another Texas hit, by the way. By the way, if it spends a day over here, it could be a hurricane, because that's just the kind of kind of year we're in. So we're still predicting 2 more storms after this. One could be this wave, one could be this Western Gulf system, which is, again, this is too far out to really make that call. So that's the GFS. Let's look at the Canadian model, the CMC. Canadian Meteorological something, I don't remember what it stands for. And not too impressed with Marco. It's starting to weaken it and kind of have it hugging the west coast or hugging the Louisiana coast and turning west. Here comes Marco. And, oh no, that's Laura. Actually, this is Marco, that's Laura. Polo didn't make the cut, sorry folks. But you can see it's a little closer to Florida because this system is starting to die off and this one's influencing it. You're not getting that Fujiwara where the 2 storms cycle over each other like the crap you've seen online. That's not happening. But this is Laura coming up, and now a stronger tropical storm, and then strengthening into maybe a hurricane going right at New Orleans. And because it's strengthening when it hits, it takes a while to weaken. So this is a lot weaker and farther east than the GFS is where we're going. And then down the road, here's the tropical wave we're watching, which came off Africa, not really developed yet. This is next weekend, by the way, about a week from today. And see, it doesn't show anything in the Western Gulf, so that's still up for debate. Here's another system, by the way, the one behind it. So that's a Canadian. Let's take a peek real quick at the, I'm not going to show the Navy gem. We already had done that, and people didn't like it, so. The Icon, which is the German model, it's got a little more mesoscale to it, which is kind of a medium scale, kind of looks at the tropics and tries to pinpoint them at a better resolution. This is tonight and has Marco coming up to close to the Mississippi River Delta here. And then it's got Laura near the south coast of Cuba, but holding her own pretty well because she's over water. As we head into Monday, we've got Marco starting to sit and kind of even stall, which is a really bad potential situation for southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. If this thing slows down, you got a lot of rain to deal with. We don't need that. But you can see it kind of just fades away because it's not a big storm. So the Icon is not treating it like a large storm, and that could be correct. But here comes Laura, right into a favorable spot to develop late Monday night, Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, it is starting to strengthen. Tuesday afternoon, it's becoming close to hurricane intensity. By Tuesday night, it's a hurricane. Still strengthening steadily and growing. And it looks like it's going to take a swipe at New Orleans, but keep going more to the west. This is now Category 2 hurricane. Here is close to Category 3. And it's making that right turn coming up between Lake Charles and Lafayette, maybe around Rain, Louisiana, Crowley, those areas down in there. So not as well populated. Cajun country, we call it. And here's landfall. Looks like late Wednesday afternoon, early Wednesday evening in southwest Louisiana. And then making that turn and still, I mean, this is going to be a tornado outbreak, a flood outbreak. This is a really bad potential storm for Louisiana. Yeah, it's kind of avoiding New Orleans, but they will still get some effect from it, I think. And then storm still, I mean, it's a tropical storm on Thursday morning approaching Arkansas and then weakening into a remnant low, and then that moisture starts to turn right. So we could get it, next weekend could be wet here, which is, I know, what you guys really love to hear, right? So let's catch our breath, and then let's take a peek at the European model here, which isn't going to get as cute. And let me show you the surface if I can. Sea level pressure and 850 wind. There we go. Not going to show you the rain. So this is yesterday evening when it was run. This is this evening. So the European model, which was killing this thing off, has got Laura strengthening into almost a hurricane over land in Cuba. Come on now. And Marco does not have it strong. And in fact, it brings Marco here and just kills it off. It's a really tiny low. So that's better news for Louisiana if that happens. But look at Laura. This is tomorrow night, 8 p.m., 7 Central. This is Tuesday night, Category 1 to almost 2 hurricane. And it's got it going west towards Houston. This is a Category 3 hurricane. And then coming up through East Texas and then weakening to a tropical storm and eventually a remnant low towards next weekend, then making a right turn. By the way, this kind of 850 wind screams of severe weather across the Tennessee Valley on Saturday and then across North Carolina. Somewhere in here, we could have some tornadoes in the Carolinas and a lot of rain next weekend, maybe next Sunday, a week from now. So if this track is right, be prepared for some severe weather. And then it's off the coast and maybe a tropical storm or hurricane again. We've seen that happen a few times. Not lately, though. So, man, got a lot to look at here. Yeah, look at that. Back to hurricane strength, maybe, north of Bermuda. Here's the next system, by the way. Potential Nana. And nothing in the Western Gulf just yet. So, wow. Lots to talk about here. We'll look at the hurricane models real fast. Let's look at Marco. Zoom that back for you guys. Has a Fujiwara ever happened before? It has, but not in the Gulf of Mexico. Usually it happens in the Pacific, in a much larger body of water where there's no land to get in the way of that kind of interaction. All right, so here's Marco. This is our weaker storm potentially down the road, and the hurricane model does not intensify it much more. It may not get to hurricane strength, but it's still going to places that don't need it. This is Monday morning, and it's got it coming up. This is the Chandeleur Mountains, the Breton Sound right here. Got it coming right across, making a left turn and weakening, but producing a lot of rain and maybe some strong wind well inland in bands of showers and storms over Mississippi, Alabama, and even western Florida. This is better for New Orleans, by the way, but north wind, that's going to try to empty the lake into parts of town, cause a little bit of flooding. But is not very impressed with Marco, and that's probably because it's small and it's got westerly wind shear that it's going to be dealing with here in the next few days. So it may be getting to its strongest point here in the next 12 hours and then starting to weaken. Let me show you, though, the latest for Laura, which should start to wake you guys up if you've been asleep. Got the storm center coming out near Haiti, going across the north coast of Cuba, and then moving due west and weakening a bit because it's going over land. But I don't know about this. It's trying to produce hurricane winds, maybe up at 850, but not near the surface. So it emerges here in the Florida Straits. These are the Keys. This is the dry Tortugas here. This is Cuba. And we're now getting into a favorable environment late tomorrow night and into Tuesday morning for some strengthening. This is Tuesday at 8 a.m., Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. Now it looks like it's a hurricane and growing quickly. Now it's got Category 2 strength late Tuesday night, Category 3 strength on Wednesday, and it doesn't stop. Category 4 strength. This is kind of weird. This pressure would be lower if these winds are higher, but we'll see. There's a super strong high, so that gradient could be strong enough to get us to that strength. But that's Category 4 hurricane strength, and this is Category 5. So we stuck that 5 on there, down in here. Maybe it's left of there. Again, I hope this doesn't happen. It might be a little too extreme, but it's still on the table, folks. Landfall looks like it's near Lake Charles in Cameron, Louisiana, and then weakening over land. But hurricane force winds in northern Louisiana, I think this ends up being a little too strong, if I can be honest with you guys. But it's something we're watching. It's not something we want to dismiss. The HMON model is the other tropical model that the Tropical Tidbits has. There are a couple of in-house models that the Hurricane Center has they don't make public because they don't want people like me seeing it and going ape over it, if that makes sense. The HMON here with Laura, doing the same thing. It's just going nuts with the winds here. But it starts to strengthen, now, and then weakening over land, over Cuba, and then strengthening over the Gulf. So, you know what? The argument that this thing's going to be over land for a day and a half can get thrown out once this system evolves into the Southeast Gulf, because then it's going to Toontown, baby. It's going nuts here. This is a Category 2 hurricane Tuesday night, Category 3 by Wednesday morning. Here's Louisiana. Looks like Category 4 by midday on Wednesday. And this is approaching Category 5 intensity, where Hurricane Audrey hit in 1957, a very quick storm that killed a lot of folks in Louisiana. The bottom just drops, 941, but winds are Category 4 and 5 strength, and then weakening over East Texas and eventually coming out of Arkansas. And maybe next weekend, next Sunday, it's in the Carolinas. All right, so 2 big storms. One of them, I think, is going to be the newsmaker, though. That's Laura. Marco, I think, just kind of sets the table for what will be Hurricane Laura. And we think, catch our breath here, but we think this was made yesterday afternoon, but take this 5 and maybe move it here, and that's what we think is going to happen. All right? So if you have folks in Louisiana or upper Texas, southeast Texas, Mississippi, you have family and friends, or if you're watching from there, please take this seriously, guys. This is going to be, we think, definitely in the headlines for quite some time, based on what we're seeing happening over land. That is a growing storm with a healthier core as we continue to watch it. It'll keep organizing, and in 2 days, it's got a great shot at developing into a hurricane over here. All right, so I'm going to leave you guys. Got family matters to deal with, church coming up, and hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Be safe out there. I'm glad we're okay here in the Carolinas. We need a little bit of a break, but hurricane season is still going to be active in September into October. So we can breathe a little easier right now, but do not stop preparing for a hurricane. It's definitely still in our forecast that the threat is there. And if I show you, I had an article way back on this page. I'm going to try to search for it. And again, the season's still kind of young, but I'll find it for you guys. Our tropical forecast, and we put that out. Maybe it's not here. I thought it was. Actually it was. I went too far. Sorry, folks. Here we go. So if you want to read my article from June 4th, that's 2.5 months ago, here is the forecast we had. And I think we had to up our numbers on named storms. I think we left the hurricanes alone. Major hurricanes, we made 5 to 8. I mean, we think there's going to be several more in September and October. But these are the areas I had targeted in red. The Central Gulf, which is getting it now. Florida and the Caribbean, they've already had 2 storms come through here. Carolinas, we've had 3 storms. New England's had a couple. Western Gulf has had 1, may get another. So we're sticking to our forecast. It seems to be working out so far. And again, this is something that you guys in the Carolinas need to be alerted to. We had 1 big threat, Isaias. We had some weaker storms, and September and October are still on the calendar last I checked. So, all right. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and God bless.